All right, could you still hear me, man?
Yeah, again.
All right, could you still hear me, man? Okay, there we go. Audio is finally working. Okay, so this video is about the misconceptions about the Book of the Dead. Um, would you like to start it off?
Um, yeah, when you look at the Book of Dead, I hear a lot of people say that once you meet that once you get judged in the afterlife, that you get more than one chance. That even if you mess up, you get put back on Earth and you live it up. You keep doing it over and over again until you get it right. And almost as if it's almost as if they're trying to relate it to reincarnation.
Yeah, so they think that if you make a mistake, you get to be reincarnated. So let's take a look at the image here. So so here's Unifer taken by Anubis, getting weighed. Then she goes, then going to Thoth over here. Then the person goes to Horus, in which he takes the person the rest of the way to Osiris for the final part of the judgment. Now, if you can't get past this point over here, then and that pretty much means you failed in life. Then you're gonna get eaten by this crocodile, this dog that has a crocodile head. Um, so your soul gets eaten by the Amit. That's the name, Ammit, and that's pretty much it. It's done. There is no second chances or reincarnation, as some people like to believe. Okay, so what else? Yeah, what do you think about this? People wanting to think that this is a reincarnating cycle, because this seems more like the Christian judgment situation where you only get one shot to get right with God, or you're gonna go to hell, or you're gonna just stay dead like your witnesses believe.
I think people they don't really do a good job of like going to good credible sources because a lot of videos that I see when I see people explain the Book of Dead, they don't really go into detail on what happens if you don't line up to the laws of Ma'at, or if your heart is heavier than the feather weighing on the scale, or they don't even speak on the Egyptian goddess Emet, who's responsible if you don't like follow the guidelines of what you're supposed to follow, like the laws and principles that the Egyptians believed in, and that if you come up on a negative side or come up short, then man, Egyptian goddess Ammit will eventually just like devour your heart, because that's what's being weighed on the scale is your heart. So if it's like lower than the feather, I mean, no, if it's heavier than the feather, then it'll get eaten by the Egyptian goddess. That's the hope. That's the reason why the Egyptian goddess Ammit is there.
Yeah. So what else do you have to say about this? Like, would you say this is similar to the Christian idea of the judgment?
Yeah, it seems similar. And then another point I want to bring up is that I noticed that when you look up um, Ammit on Google, you're gonna see some sources saying that it's referenced as like a fire, and I find it to be kind of strange because the lake of fire is also mentioned in the Book of Revelation, so I see a lot of similarities between the two. Like,
Yes. And the other thing is, in no way am I saying that the Christian um, myth about the judgment came from this particular um, it did not come from the Book of the Dead. I'm not saying that it did or didn't, but if you look in the New Testament, it'll often call hell Hades. Now, I know there's some people that think that it came from Egypt. The whole thing came from Egypt, but if you look at the fact that the New Testament was written in Greek, then would you agree with me that the people that wrote the New Testament in Greek would be more familiar with the Greek myths than they are with the
yeah,
Egyptian?
yeah, because they would be influenced by what the Greeks taught and what they believed
Right.
in.
Now, like I brought up Hades earlier, all you have to do is like you could just type um Hades Bible verse, and we'll just go to this pretty obvious Christian website here, and you read um, Acts chapter 2, verse 27, because you will not abandon my soul to Hades, nor allow your Holy One to undergo decay. And also Revelation chapter 20, verse 13 to 14. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead which were in them, and they were judged, every one of them according to their deeds. The death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. So if I were to think about, like, if I were to conclude where this judgment story really came from, then I would think that it came from the story, from the Greco-Roman understanding of Hades or Pluto, um, because, well, they had a similar judgment scene down there as well. You know, souls burning in hell, just like what happened in the New Testament. Not necessarily the Egyptians. And even if the Egyptians did have the exact same system, well, the New Testament's mentioning Hades instead of the Amet or any of the Egyptian deities for that matter. So would you agree with me if I were to say it's kind of like in its own way it's admitting it borrowed the story from Hades?
You talking about the judgment scene?
Yeah, the story of Hades in the New Testament was borrowed from the Greco-Roman story of Hades.
Yeah, according to the Greek mythology, yes.
Okay, so since we agree on that, is there anything more that you'd like to say on the matter?
Well, speaking of the Egyptian goddess Ammit, she was also feared by the Egyptians. A lot of Egyptians, like upon and after that, they feared this goddess because they feared her because they know that if their heart was not aligned with the principles of art, then their heart would get devoured. They would cease to exist, and they would not be allowed to continue their voyage with Osiris in the next ascension.
Right,
Because Osiris was known as the judge of the underworld. So if you didn't make it past this scene, then you would not be able to like ascend with Osiris.
right. Okay, I think that pretty much covers it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So it's important that people do their research. Be careful which websites you go to. I would especially not listen to um, anything else of what that person may be thinking, because if they tell you Horus December 25th nonsense, because Egyptians never said Horus was born rose again from the dead on December 25th, or was born on December 25th. Nothing about 12 apostles, 12 disciples of Horus, I meant to say. And his mother Isis was not a virgin. She had sex with Osiris, and Horus was born out of that. Okay, so he's not born of a virgin. So the same scenario with the Book of the Dead. Anyone tries to tell you the Book of the Dead that is a reincarnating story in there about the reincarnating judgment, it doesn't. It's one shot, one chance. You fail, you get eaten. That's it. By the Goss Amit, by the way, AMMIT. Look it up. Okay, that's pretty much it.